Okay, party people, we are going to be taking a look at this rhetorical analysis prompt, what I usually call the Luce prompt, because it's by Clare Luce, and we're going to read through the prompt and then talk about what we're looking for and how we'd go about answering it, and then we're going to annotate, work through, and talk through what the actual passage means, all right, and the significance of those things as we prepare to have to write a rhetorical analysis essay. So usually, in a nutshell, the prompt is going to have you analyze and identify the rhetorical strategies or the rhetorical choices an author makes in order to achieve his or her purpose. So you're going to have to at some point identify the purpose, and then how did the author achieve that purpose. Now, that's the core. Although each prompt uses different wording, and some prompts might give you a more specific direction to go in. So we're going to talk about that as we go through the prompt. But the first thing we always want to do is never neglect the prompt. We'll read through the prompt and then we'll get into the passage. So let's go ahead and jump in here. The passage below is the opening, okay, the opening. And so this is an introduction that we're reading to a speech made in 1960 by American journalist and politician Clare Luce to journalists at the Women's National Press Club. In this speech, Luce went on to criticize the tendency of the American press to sacrifice journalistic integrity in favor of the perceived public demand for sensationalist stories. So she's getting them ready to be criticized. And so she's doing something through this to kind of get them ready to get slapped around a little bit. All right. So that's, again, it's important to realize this is the introduction, which is to prepare them for what's coming. Read the passage carefully. Then in a well-developed essay, analyze how Luce uses this introduction to prepare the audience for her message. Right. So you can see it's specific. How does she use the introduction to prepare the audience for her message? Her purpose is to prepare them for her message. What rhetorical choices is she doing or making to do that, right? How she uses it. Support your analysis of her rhetoric, so there that is, with specific references to the text. In other words, right, you have to come up with a thesis, and then, of course, we're going to be looking specifically for a tonal shift, where she starts in one area and then moves to kind of a different focus or adds on or builds to what she's saying. The tonal shift will allow us to focus kind of on two claims that we can make, two body thesis statements, if you will, so that we can do a 2-paragraph essay. But we have to come up with, so then 2 subclaims or 2 subpurposes that then together would be our main claim about her rhetorical choices in order to prepare her audience. Okay, so hopefully that's all clear as to what we're looking for. So we're going to start working through the prompt, talking through what these different things mean, because she is with her colleagues, right? It says she is a reporter herself and a politician, and she is going to, including herself, get them ready for some criticism. So let's go ahead and go in, and as we read through this, right, that's what we're looking for. And specifically, we're looking for a shift here so that we can divide this prompt into 2 areas that we can talk about. Here it starts. I am happy and flattered to be a guest of honor on this always exciting and challenging occasion. But looking over this audience tonight, I am less happy than you might think and more challenged than you could know. I stand here at this rostrum or podium, invited to throw rocks at you. Okay? So she's prepping them already. That she's saying, right? You might think this is going to be an exciting opportunity for me. I get to get up here and speak as a guest speaker, but it does not make me happy to have to do this, okay? And it's very challenging for me. So right away, as she gets into this, right, she's saying to them, not as excited as you might think is the idea here. In other words, she's already preparing them like, you've brought me here. Now, obviously, the throwing rocks is a metaphor, right? She's not literally going to throw rocks at them, although that would be an interesting evening. But so here we have this metaphor, but clearly throwing rocks is aiming to hurt them. So she is going to be giving them hard things to receive. You have asked me to tell you what's wrong with you, the American press. So she's identifying her purpose to them. I'm here to tell you what's wrong with you. So this is her overall purpose, is to criticize, but she has to prepare them for the criticism. The subject is not only of great national significance, but also has, one should say, infinite possibilities and infinite perils to the rock thrower. Okay, so she's admitting it's potentially damaging to her. In other words, this is risky. Risky that she's doing this. For the banquet speaker who criticizes the weaknesses and pretensions or exposes the follies and sins of his listeners, even at their invitation, does not generally evoke an enthusiastic, no less a friendly response. Okay, so what is she saying here? I don't expect you to be happy. So going in, not expecting to be liked by this. Okay, she's kind of preparing them like I'm standing up here ready for you to be unhappy with me. So you're kind of putting them in her shoes, if you will, right? She's helping them know where she's coming from. So let's think around that. How do you prepare someone to receive bad news that you're going to be giving to them? To help them identify with you, perhaps, might be the way to do so. The delicate art of giving an audience hell is always one best left to the Billy Grahams and the Bishop Sheens. And so it tells you in the bottom right over here, Billy Graham. So let's go, this is where we're looking at. Billy Graham, an American Christian evangelist, and Fulton John Sheen, an American Catholic archbishop, both became renowned for their religious oratory. Their speeches were widely broadcast on radio and television. So this is kind of a joke. It's an authority. She's referring to authority, you could say, with these two preachers. It's also like a reference to, I guess we'll call it a reference to public knowledge. People would know who these men were. And so she's kind of correlating using this connection here of what these men do. Now here's where the joke is, right? The delicate art of giving an audience hell. So what would these preachers be doing, right? They're trying to get people to step into their faith, to accept Christianity here, and in order to escape or avoid hell. So she's literally saying, they are giving people hell. These preachers would be talking about hell to their audience, but also there's a saying called giving someone hell, which means that you're kind of laying into them. Okay, so that there's a double entendre there with giving hell, with double entendre meaning that you say one thing and it has two different meanings. So we might say here, this is a double entendre. You could say that. I mean, we don't need to necessarily say that in your essay, but she is correlating herself, right? Correlating self with well-known. In other words, these preachers would be getting up, giving their audience bad news that they're separated from God. She's giving this audience bad news that some of their behavior separates them from their journalistic integrity. But you are an audience of journalists. There is no audience anywhere who should be more bored. Now, one thing that we do want to pay attention to is words like but. Words like and so indicate a continuation of thought. Words like but indicate a change of thought. And so the question would be, okay, so with this but, is there a shift going on here, right? Up till this point, she is asking them to understand her place, where she's coming from. This is a hard situation for me. I'm taking a risk here. You're not going to like me. I'm having to throw rocks at you. And so she's actually, giving her perspective of why she might even be dreading this. And then she says, but. Okay, and so let's talk about but here. What is she saying after this? You are an audience of journalists. There is no audience anywhere who should be more bored, indeed more revolted, that means sickened, by a speaker who tried to fawn on it. To fawn on something means to suck up or to flatter. butter it up, same idea. To butter someone up is to flatter them. Exaggerate its virtues, meaning to say you're better than you actually are. Play down its faults, ignore the bad, and who would more quickly see through any attempt to do so. I ask you only to remember that I am not a volunteer for this subject tonight. You asked for it. So it all connects together. So that might not be the tonal shift, right? In as much as she still talks about, I'm not the volunteer, you asked for it, you asked me to be here. But what does this do? It acknowledges her audience should not want her to try to be like, okay? So we're going to put on here, they should want truth. They should want truth, not flattery. Okay, so that said, right, as the audience, they should actually want this from her. So when I'm looking at this, because it went back here to say, I ask you only to remember that I'm not a volunteer, this is kind of where she started this. So that wouldn't, in my opinion, be a tonal shift where I'd want to focus because it's all connected together. You asked me here and you wouldn't want me to suck up to you anyway, preparing them for the jobs she has. For what is good journalism all about? Question, right? On a working finite level, it is the effort to achieve illuminating candor in print and to strip away cant. So we got some vocabulary issues going, right? Illuminating candor is like to the point, just being honest or blunt. Strip away cant is like extra flowery words or jargon. It is the effort to do this not only in matters of state, diplomacy, and politics, but also in every smaller aspect of life that touches the public interest or engages proper public curiosity. In other words, it's a reporter's job to tell the truth without garnish, without fluff. It's the effort to explain everything from a summit conference to why the moon looks larger coming over the horizon than it does when it has fully risen in the heavens. It is the effort, too, to describe the lives of men and women, big and small, close at hand or thousands of miles away, familiar in their behavior. These are all examples, right? Familiar in their behavior or unfamiliar in their idiosyncrasies. It is, to use the big word, the pursuit of and the effort to state the truth. So what she's saying in all of that, right, is simply it's a reporter's or journalist's job to speak truth no matter the subject. This is where she's going through this list. It's like we speak the truth. It's our job, whether the person is a neighbor or a politician, a president or a prime minister, whether it's a small little news story or it's a huge story. We are here to pursue the truth. So reminding them of what their job really is. No audience knows better than an audience of journalists that the pursuit of the truth and the articulation or communicating of it is the most delicate, hazardous, exacting, and inexact of tasks. All right? So that's interesting, right? It's exacting. In other words, it's demanding, but it's also inexact. It's hard. It's difficult. So their job is difficult. To be truth tellers, job is difficult. Consequently, no audience is more forgiving, I hope, to the speaker who fails or stumbles in his own pursuit of it. So, right, she's again going back to this. Our job, your job, it's hard to tell the truth. It's challenging to tell the truth. It takes a lot to do that. And so in that case, you should understand, you should commiserate with me. We should be on the same page here that I might struggle. So she's preparing them for the fact that they're all about the truth. And so they should extend her grace, extend her understanding as she tries to communicate that. The only failure this audience could never excuse in any speaker would be the failure to try to tell the truth as he sees it about his subject, all right? So what she's telling him is, I am going to try to be accurate and honest. So judge me kindly, I suppose. In my perilous but earnest effort to do so here tonight, I must begin by saying that if there is much that is wrong with the American press, there is also much that is right with it. So there's good and there's bad, right? I know then that you will bear with me, much as it may go against your professional grain, if I ask you to accept some of the good with the bad, even though it may not make such good copy for your newspapers. But the plain fact is that the U.S. daily press today is not inspiringly good. It is far and away the best press in the world. So it's like she's kind of complimenting them here at the same time, complimenting. So she's complimenting while also preparing. Complimenting while also preparing. So that whole section there, I think, if we wanted to find the tonal shift, again, sometimes the tonal shift is a little bit elusive, but what we're really trying to do is get a handle on two areas we can focus on. So in the first area, right, putting them in her shoes to an extent. The second area is reminding them what they really are about as journalists, and therefore should understand her efforts, and that she might fail just as they might fail sometime. But that, this is who we are, reminding them of who they are, in that if you know who you are, you want to know the truth, you want to tell the truth, and therefore we're doing what we're supposed to do as the press. Whenever I do these and talk through annotation, it is not my goal to give you all of the answers. It is my goal to help you think through some of what is being said and then allow you to make those final determinations as to where's the tonal shift going to be, what am I going to say is her purpose before the tonal shift so I can have a paragraph on that, and what am I going to say after the tonal shift so I can have a paragraph on that. So hopefully that's helpful for you, taking a look at the Luce prompt, but still giving you enough room to chew on it a little bit on your own. All right? Thanks for watching. Really appreciate you watching this video. It would be amazing. You're a fabulous person if you could subscribe to the channel. Here's a bunch of other videos that are writing workshops to help you deal with all kinds of facets of writing and growth as a writer. And then a couple other playlists that you might just find amusing or interesting or even helpful. Thank you so much. Until next time.